Hello. Great. We'll wait a couple of minutes to see if anybody else will join. Great. All right, I'm just gonna get started here. Pull up my notes. All right, what's up, contractors? My name is Eric. I'm super excited to get started with you with the first follow-up Friday that we have here on our Facebook user group. So to get started, we're just gonna hop right on in. To set a little agenda for today, I'm gonna go through the top 10 frequently asked questions that you guys come to us with when you're either rolling out follow-up or training new people, just a bunch of questions that you guys come with to us. So I want to answer those here live. And after I go through these 10 questions, I'll open it up to anybody that is watching that would want to ask a question, and then you can either post that on the comments below or in the chat if you're on the Zoom meeting. So let's hop in. Let me share my screen here with you guys. All right, can you see my screen? All right, so first, number one question that we get is, I created a new user, but their dashboard isn't working. So, oh, I think it's refreshing here, right? We hit pause. Okay, here we go. So I created a new user, but their dashboard isn't working. So let me show you what you would do in that scenario. So let's say you come here, your settings, you put a new user in the system, and then you come to their dashboard and there are no activities there. Why is that happening? What's going on? The reason why that's happening is because we have something called an activity dashboard. And what that allows you to do is set up workflows between different people at the company so that you can have individuals be responsible for the activity that they are personally responsible for. For example, let's say somebody calls into the company and the first person to answer the phone is maybe a receptionist. And this person would open up a new follow-up file, take down their information, and then pass it off maybe to a sales manager or to the salesperson. And the reason why you would have a different workflow there is because the first activity you might want to track is a new call, right? But when you're handing it to the sales manager or the salesperson, they might not be responsible for that activity. So let's say you have an estimator at the company. They're responsible, obviously, for creating the estimate, maybe in a tool like the Estimating Edge or something like that. The salesperson can hand off the opportunity to the estimator, and so that they can take an estimate. Basically, it allows you for workflow coordination. So what you would do is you would come to the settings area. Now, this is only available for administrators of the system. So if you have issues with your dashboard report, then go to your administrator at your company and they will be able to help you. So you would come here to your dashboard report under your settings, and you can see here, all you have to do is check off the boxes that that specific person is responsible for. Now, internally here at Followup, you can see that our activities are a little different because we're a software company, but this is an example of what that would look like. So for me, I do a lot of the sales here at Followup, and Christine, she does a lot of the client onboarding and support. So as you can see for her, she has no sales activities that she's responsible for. Now, once I bring on a new client, you can see I'm responsible for these sales activities. I would pass it off to Christine on a launch call. So a lot of you have been through this experience before. As soon as you're done evaluating the solution, I would pass you off to Christine. So on Christine's dashboard, she is only responsible for the activities that are assigned to her, so that she knows how many launch calls, how many support calls, how many system setups that she has to do. Same thing at your company. How many client meetings, how many networking meetings, how many this or that meetings that are part of your job description or workflow that you need to track and set up for your individuals at your company. So if your dashboards aren't working correctly, all you have to do is come here, check off the box, save this, and then it will appear under your dashboard. So that is the first question that we get very often, all the time. So check that out if you have not seen that before. So next question we have here is my project isn't showing up on my dashboard. So there can be a variety of reasons why your project isn't showing up on your dashboard. The first reason could be, maybe that you don't have that activity assigned to you. The second reason might be, for example, that you forgot to schedule an activity for yourself right here. If you don't schedule an activity for yourself, then it's not going to show up on your dashboard, because the dashboard is the place that you go to see what you need to get done for the day. Whatever it is, you need to schedule an activity. I don't care if the activity is 6 months away. For example, for me, whenever I talk to a potential client and they tell me to follow up in 6 months, I always ask them, are you sure you want me to do that? Because I'm going to schedule the follow-up in 6 months. And if you really want to talk, then great, I'll do that. If not, then we can just part ways. So, time and time again, I'll schedule that follow-up 6 months out. I actually do follow up with them because they want to test me. And then when I do, they're always pleasantly surprised because people just don't follow up with people. So that is the main reason why a project isn't showing up on an activity dashboard. Another reason could be that you don't have your sales status in place. A lot of times you might have a pending sales status, or it wasn't handed off to the appropriate person. So those are some reasons why a project might not be showing up on your dashboard. Now, here's another question. Why isn't my project showing up in my pipeline? So before we get into that, let me talk about what is a pipeline. And on your homepage, you can see here that you have a pipeline chart, right? So here's an example of a pipeline chart where your bids and your quotes would fall into some of these categories right here, right? So maybe you get a lead that's coming in and it's hot, but you don't see it in this section that's called hot. Now, the number one reason why it might not show up in your pipeline is, honestly, it's because of this. And I know a lot of you come to Christine asking, hey, this didn't show up in my pipeline. Now let me show you why it did not. So you would come here, you would open up a job. The number one reason why it's not showing up in your pipeline is because you did not check off the proposal delivered box. That's 99% of the issues is you have to check off that box for it to enter the pipeline. Why? That is because if you've not handed a proposal to a potential client, then it's not in the pipeline. What the pipeline is intended to measure is kind of like a batting average for a baseball player. You're not measuring how many pitches that you get pitched to. You're measuring how many swings you take for the good pitches. And if it's a good pitch, then you're going to swing, right? And that is what a proposal does. For example, you don't want to measure how many bad leads you're getting in the pipeline. That doesn't make sense. You want to see how many opportunities that you're actually winning or losing, and that is triggered on when a proposal is delivered. So 99% of the time, that is the reason why your opportunity is not in the pipeline. The second reason why is potentially that you haven't updated the sales status to an appropriate pipeline status. And what I mean by that here is if you select a drop down, you can see the statuses that you would see here that may or may not be in the pipeline. So for example, hot is going to be in the pipeline, but a dead lead is not going to be in the pipeline for the reasons that I just stated, okay? So that is why you have to select the appropriate pipeline statuses for it to show in your pipeline. And so you might ask, what are my pipeline statuses? Well, if you're an administrator of the system, you can see this. If you're not, you might want to get with the administrator of your system so that you can see that. But what you would do to see those is you would come here to settings, and then you would come to codes, and then you would go to your sales status. So here under sales statuses, you will see a category called pipeline. Now, whatever box is checked is a sales status that is a part of the pipeline. So as you can see, active, hot, contract to be signed are all a part of our pipeline. If it's not checked off, it's not a part of the pipeline. So I think the bigger picture is starting to come together. And if you want to add more categories to your pipeline, because your sales process is a little different, all you have to do is add another sales status and include it within your pipeline. So those are going to be the top reasons why a bid is not showing up in your pipeline. So let's move on to the third question here. My dashboard is blank or isn't showing some of my projects. So again, that's going to go back to the dashboard report. So I'm just going to skip this question and move on to the next one. Number 4, how do I set quotas for my sales team? So just to give you a quick overview of sales quotas, if we go here to the home page, these dark bars down here are going to show you your quotas. So there are 3 types of quotas that you can have within Followup. Number 1, a bid volume quota. Number 2, a captured contracts quota. And then number 3, a sales behavior hours quota. Now let me talk about what that means. A bid volume quota is how many proposals you have on the street for that month. So the idea is if I get whatever your quota is, like for example, $6,000 of bids out there on the street every month, if I times this by my closing ratio, I should hit my captured contracts quota. So again, the bid volume quota is going to be how many proposals should you be putting out there on the street every month. And so whether you're in a residential business, a commercial business, you can tailor that quota to what you should be. And the reason why how you get to this number is really historical numbers based on your goals for the year. So it's January. It would be a good time to say, okay, take a step back and look at the big picture. If we want to hit 20 million this year in revenue, how much bid volume do we need to bid to actually hit that objective? So kind of bleeding into the captured contracts quota, this is pretty straightforward. How many captured contracts did we get for that month, right? So as you can see, and you guys know this with the green bar, that shows you actual versus your quota, right? So this is generally where your percentages are coming in for your closing ratio. So all a closing ratio is, or win rate is your bid volume versus your captured contracts. That's all the closing ratio is, right? So you can adjust that as well. And then lastly, sales behavior hours quota. Now I know, because I talked to a lot of you guys, that this is probably one of the most underutilized quotas in the follow-up system, but those of you who are using this section really understand their business, and they really understand the activities that their people are doing on a day-to-day basis, because at the end of the day, the activity drives your sales activity. So this shows you how many proposals am I getting out there every month? How many meetings am I doing every month? How many takeoffs am I doing every month? How many estimates am I doing every month? And so every activity that you have on the file page gets you a credit of an activity accomplished. So for example, let's say I have a client meeting that's a sales behavior on my job. Let me show you what that looks like. So I pull up a file here. I'm just gonna open up a random file, and let's pretend we have a discovery call with a client, and you as a sales manager or an administrator of the company want to credit your salesperson 1 hour for this activity. In the settings area, you'll have the credit of 1 hour, and whenever this activity is completed, the people will receive that 1 credit hour credited to their homepage here. So taking a month in review, how many credits or sales behavior hours do you need to get to hit your sales behavior hours quota? The whole idea is, if I'm sending out 50 proposals a month, and that gives me 50 hours of work, then I can back into all of these numbers, so I know exactly what I need to do in a given month to hit my numbers. So how do you set that up? Let me show you here. You would come here to your settings area, and again, only administrators of an account can do this. You would come to people, and then under your people, you can set up your quotas. You would come to this $ amount. And basically what you would do is put in the quota information that you have, right? So let me move this really quick. So let's say I wanted to edit a quota for the month. You put in the day, the month, the year, the bid count, the volume count, the gross margin, dollars, the contract amount, the contract volume, the gross margin, and the sales behavior hours. Let me just walk through this. The count of bids is the actual physical proposals that you're sending out. So, and the volume would be the dollar amount of those volume of that bid. So, for example, let's say your bid volume quota is $1 million for the month. Is it better to send 1 proposal out for $1 million, or is it better to send 10 $100,000 proposals out, right? So that is what this is showing you here. Same thing for contract amount, same thing for contract volume, right? So here's where you set up your quotas. You click save, and then you have this little section here, include users quota into the company quotas. So your company quota is the accumulation of all your people within the system rolled up into one view, the company view, or you know, the office view, or the, the division view, right? So all of your people are rolling up into one view so you can get the full big picture of what's going on. So taking that back to the home page here, what you would do is, you know, we have pretend quotas here in a demo account. And let's say I want to see the whole company. It would roll up here to everybody. Let me see this. This is in my way a little bit. How do I minimize that? There we go. And then click apply. And this would filter everything to see the entire company, as you guys know. Okay, so that should answer that question. Let me move on to the next question here. Why are projects missing from my closing ratio? I hear this question all the time. So let me explain kind of what's going on here. So firstly, a lot of times we gather a closing ratio, like I said earlier, on a bid volume versus captured contracts basis. Now, if we look at this closing ratio chart, we have a 1 year rolling closing ratio. Now, what that means is, as you can see, it is calculating based on the bids and the contracts between this date period. In this case, it's today, January 10th, 2020, through the same period of last year. Now, why do we do that? Because it's important to see your current closing ratio in the current market you're in. A lot of times people want to see the closing ratio for all time, and I would actually discourage that, because sometimes the markets change, you know, and markets can be volatile between year to year. So it's important to see you know, what your current closing ratio is for that given year, so that you can either throttle your bids up or down depending on what your closing ratio is reflecting. Now, to answer the question directly, your bid might not show up in this section in the closing ratio because it was bid outside this date range. So if I bid something on January 9th, 2019, would it be in this closing ratio calculation? No. So that's how we got that. So here you go. You can see total bid amount for this time period, and then total contract amount based on this time period, and then closing ratio on the dollar, and then on the bid. So one thing to know about this closing ratio on the dollar versus closing ratio on the bid is that it's important to separate these two, because sometimes you might have a big service business. Sometimes you might have a construction business. And this shows you that whenever a contract is put out, so like we'll win 80% of all contracts. So 8 out of 10 contracts we will win, but we will win 60% of the dollar value of those contracts. So it's really helpful when you're splitting that out into your service division or your construction division. Now, let's say you actually wanted to measure a different closing ratio calculation date range period. All you have to do is come to the reports section and pull a closing ratio report for whatever time frame that you want to do. We put that here because we believe that's the most accurate and precise way to measure your closing ratio for your business today. So that's a little bit about the closing ratio section. Let's move on to the next question here. Do you have an app? So I'm so excited to show you guys this. With, you know, the new updates of Followup, we have a really nice mobile application that we can roll out to you. I'm gonna see if I can share this with you. I'm gonna stop sharing this screen so I can share with you my phone here. Let's see if this works. All right. So you can see here, that's my dog in the background at the beach. So let me show you what the Followup CRM mobile view looks like. You can see on this column, on the first column here on the right-hand side, almost at the bottom, we have the Followup CRM app. You can open that up and it will take you to the application. So you can log in like you normally would. And so this is what we're looking at here. So this allows you to filter, it's all the homepage information, right? So a lot of the reasons why we changed some of the look and feel of Followup is so that we could have a nice mobile experience. So you can see here, all of this is clickable. But let me show you one thing that's really helpful when it comes to the mobile application. What you would do is you would come here to the dashboard. Let's say you had a takeoff that you had to get done for the day, or you were on site with a client or something like that. So here are your sales behaviors. You can see exactly what you need to get done for the day. I'm gonna come here to like discovery call, for example, and open up a project. So here you can see this is the job information area. We don't have an address in this file particularly, but you can see this little map thing right here, this map icon. If you clicked on that, it would open up your Google Maps and then you can drive to the location. You can see here email and phone, so you can call directly from the application and do what you need to do with this client. Another really nice feature that we have here is that you can upload photos and documents. So if you come here, click on documents, this will allow you to connect to your photo library. And then from here, you can select multiple photos on your phone and upload them directly to the file. That's something new that we have in the system that's really nice that we can see here. It saves a lot of time, so you don't have to email yourself a bunch of photos, drag and drop. You can do it right from your phone. So those are some of the highlights of the of the mobile application here. So let's see here, I'm gonna stop the broadcast and change back over to the laptop. Share my screen. Okay. All right, so next question. How do I see all the projects that I have entered? So a couple of things around that. Number one, the pipeline is gonna be the best place to see all the projects that you have entered. If you have a project that is not in the pipeline, then it's a lead. If you have a project that is you know, coming your way potentially that is in the pipeline, these are the ones that you really are going to want to focus on. But let's say you want to see every single file that you've entered. What you would do is you would come here to the file button, and this brings you to a list of all files in the Followup system. Now, you can see here, this will be under, you know, there's a bunch of different files here. You can see all the pages we have. But let's say I wanted to search for the files in my name. Here's an advanced search feature where you can filter by any category or section in the file data area. So in that case, I wanted to see all files with my name on it. I would just click my name here. I would click apply. And now you can see account manager, Eric Vargas. So these are all the files that I have personally entered. Now, one thing that is really helpful, that's a new feature in the system, is that you will see this save icon. Now, what you're able to do here is you can save, we call it saving this pattern. And this saves the pattern that you have used in the advanced search. And this is all my files and I can save that. So what that allows me to do is once I am done for the work today, let's say I wanted to do that exact same search feature, query to the database, rather than coming here to advanced search, rather than doing this, I can come to the save button, and then I can do use pattern, and then select all my files. So that is the list that I put together right now. And then it uses that list that we just created here. So that's a new feature. And one of the great things about this saved list feature is that it's dynamic. What I mean by that is, let's say I put in a new file right now, it would add that file to this saved list. So a lot of people are going to use this for maybe a new lead list. So whenever a new lead is entered, we can filter quickly and dynamically see that in a nice little report that we have on the file page. So that's how you're going to see all the files in your name. Now I'm going to move on to the next question we have here. What do we have? Okay. How can I set up a follow-up with someone without creating a project? Good question. All right. So typically what we're doing here is we are setting up a follow-up with a project, right? But a lot of you might be doing a business development activity that is not associated with a project yet. So what we would do in that situation is we would come to the client section, and we would open up the company that we would like to set up a follow-up with. And then we would go to the contact that we want to set up the follow-up with. Let's say Austin, for example. Here, you can set up the follow-up of when you would want to do that. So let's say I set up the follow-up for today. I'm just going to click OK, the time, yada, 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 right there. And I will assign myself as the person that is doing that activity. Boom. So that is how we're setting up a follow-up with a individual person, and you can see it's scheduled right there. So what we would do from here, on that time and date, it would appear here in your dashboard as an activity that needs to get accomplished. As you can see under follow-up, I would come here, I would click on that category, and then it shows you that individual, you know, right here, Austin, that needs to be followed up with. And it takes you back to this page. You can leave a note about, you know, whatever the result was from that follow-up or activity, whatever you're doing with that individual. So pretty straightforward question. We have that question asked to us all the time, but that's how you do it. Next thing here, how do I attach a project to a client? Good question. All right, let's open up a file. Let's take this one, for example. So a lot of times you're adding a client to a project for multiple different reasons. Number one, you want to associate one job to one client, or sometimes you're bidding out to multiple different clients to a particular job. Whatever the scenario is, the way you attach a job to a client is the same in follow-up. So here, this is the job information, right? So this is about the specific location of the job. Sometimes that's the same as the client. Sometimes it's not the same. But what you would do is you would have your job information. But if you scroll down here, you have your company information. As you can see, we have another company. We have the company information here. But let's say I want to add another one. I would simply click on the company information area. And let's say I wanted to add this company, Advanced Roofing and Sheet Metal, to that. If I click on that, the contacts of my company, of this company, would pop up, and you simply just click the plus button. So now we know for this job, we're bidding to both 33 carpenters and Advanced Roofing and Sheet Metal. So you can add as many as you need for this section, depending on how many people you're bidding to. And you're also able to say, is this pending won or lost? So as soon as you attach a company to the section, you are able to click on that company, and then it is associated with that company, and it'll take you to the company page, and you'll see that under the recent files section. So that's how you're attaching a project or associating a project to a client. Next, last but not least, how do I add or delete a user from the system? Now, this is a great question. First off, I would want to say that only administrators of an account can add or delete a user from the system. Now, before we get into that, one mistake that we see very often is deleting users before the files are transferred out of their names. And a lot of people might delete a user because, you know, maybe they left the company and they're frantic because they don't want them to take the files or information that is in the system. So they're just trying to delete them as soon as possible. In that scenario, what you would do is, number one, just change their password. You can change their password, no problem. And then number two, you would search for all the files in their name, and you would update assigned users. So let's say Joe left the company. All you would have to do is select all of their files, update an assigned user to a new person, transfer all the files into their name, mass update, and then you're free to delete the user. It's, even though they're gone for the company or whatever the situation is, it's still important to track that they once worked on an opportunity, so that transfer of information is smooth. So once you have taken care of this portion, what you would do to delete that user, you would come here to settings. You would come here to people, and simply you would click on the delete user button right there. We're not going to delete Alyssa. We're going to delete this one. And here it asks you, are you sure you want to deactivate this person? In this scenario, we say yes, deactivate. I'm not going to do that right now, but that's steps you would take to deactivate. Now, once that actually happens, you can see down here that they will become an inactive user, and you can actually restore them if you needed to. So let's say there was a mistake or something like that, you can restore them if you wanted to. So that's how you add or delete a user on your team. I hope that answers your questions. I want to see here if there's anyone on the Facebook Live right now watching that may have asked the question. We're gonna stick around here for just a minute. I think, let me open this up. That answers your questions. I want to see here if there's anyone. Do you see anyone there on the chat or no? Okay. Well, since this is all we have here for today, I'm going to end the Facebook Live, but please reach out to us if there's anything else we can do or any other questions that we can have. All right. See you next time. Or no. Okay. Well, since this is all we have here.